You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way. Well, folks, here we are again. Just you and me. I'm still Savage. I hope you're still fine. Chair's a little creakier. The ice is melting a bit too rapidly. That's what happens when the seasons change and the world gets a little warmer. We can start to turn our thoughts to growth, new beginnings, and blossomings. Well, here we are. It's another year, 2021. Another Bits box. Not that we've had too many of them this last while. This is number 3 of an infrequent series. As usual, it's a mix, a potpourri. The smells of the past, nostalgia arising out of those moments we're reminded of from before. This time, we're going to talk to one of the show's founders, and he's been popping up here and there, Evil Robot Shane, about just what it's like to game on the open wave, LARP, while sailing the latitudes, and RPG, while manning the decks. Yep, it's a little piece we put together a long time ago about gaming on boats and gaming in nautical settings while actually on a boat. I think you'll enjoy it. After that, we're going to go even further back. I think it was last year or the year before's GaleCon director Xander joined myself and Warlord Scar. We got down to one of our perennial favourite topics here on the show, which is big stompy metal robots, and in this case Mechwarrior, a franchise that has gone from strength to strength. Yeah, something like that. Very hard to put an assault mech down. Now we just talk about the things we like about the setting, our personal gripes, our predilections, things we'd like to see, things we hope we never see again. And then we'll close out. Here and there I might pop up once I've refreshed my glass of whiskey. Give you my thoughts on the here and now. But right now we should get the show started. So here we go. Okay, well, I'm joined now by former host and still very active partygoer, Evil Robot Shane. How you doing, Shane?
I'm very well, thanks, Mick.
Or is that Mr. Evil Robot?
No need for the mister. We don't stand on formalities in the Evil Robot community.
No formalities. I mean, if we're at sea, I believe you reside sometimes on the ocean waves, so I'd have to call you captain or skipper, wouldn't I?
Yeah, or actually you could even go as Commodore.
Commodore, oh brilliant. That's when you've got a couple... No, I don't remember my over maturing exactly. I take after the Irishman. But Commodore is when you've got more than one ship, or you're not a captain, or something.
Yeah, I'm interpreting it as more than one.
More than one ship, excellent. Speaking of being shipshape and gaming, you're going to tell us a little bit about something I was only vaguely aware of, which is the noble and gentle art of sailing the ocean wave while pretending to be someone else, or nautical LARPing as it's known. What do you have to say on that front?
Well, this is something that I did a couple of times last year, back when you were allowed to be in a room with a gamer. And it's kind of by coincidence that I played 2 one-shot, I don't know what you call them, like parlour-style LARPs that were both set on and took place on actual boats. So one of them was out and about on the Baltic Sea, and the other one was just was just moored up in Canary Wharf, and all the boat travel was in our imaginations. But nevertheless, as a setting, as a space to play in, the physical space of a boat is really interesting and very evocative, and a lot of fun. Climbing up and down ladders and going out on deck and that kind of stuff.
I can only imagine, because while an ocean vessel, anything capable of crossing the seas, is a home base, a place for work, for exploration, and a very different physical environment. I've only really had occasion to visit real ships once or twice, a few times the Irish ferries, but they have their own sort of geography, don't they?
Yeah, indeed. So, LARPs being what they are, the player base isn't there to warrant anything as large as a ferry. So it's fairly confined in comparison to that. But yeah, it's a three-dimensional space, which is unusual, I suppose. And there's never a big area. If you want to have those secret conversations that you have in LARPs, you're going to be very clearly huddled in a corridor and going quiet and staring at the sky, whistling when somebody needs to squeeze past you and that kind of thing. It does change the
who might be
playstyle.
Listening from behind a bulkhead or eavesdropping at a portal.
Yes, actually, there was a bit of that in one of them, which worked really well. Of the two that I played,
which of the games came first? Yeah, which one did you do first, and how did you find out about it?
I'm trying to remember now, actually, which I did first. So the two that I played were one called Demeter, which is the boat that brings Dracula to England from Transylvania in the novel, and all that we know about it in the novel is that it arrives in England, missing its crew and with the captain dead but tied to the wheel, and there's a last journal entry in his log. But what actually happened leading up to that is, apart from what's mentioned in the log, is not covered in the novel. So it's a bit of an empty space that is a really, really good idea for doing a LARP. And so that's kind of got that sort of, I suppose you might call it, Nordic style thing of you know how it's going to end. So therefore, there's a bit of negotiation that can go on as to how your character is going to meet their doom, but it's going into it, and I'm not spoilerizing it by saying this, that your character will be dead by the end of the game.
If it doesn't say Dracula on your character sheet, we've got bad news for you. And I suppose it's quite fitting that the journey is the thing in this case. It's as you say, a game about exploring that blank space between the pages of one of the most popular Gothic novels ever written. So that presumably that required historical dress. I'm looking at the site.
Yeah. It wasn't difficult to put together because it's 19th century. So the characters are pre-written and assigned that way. So you kind of fill in a form with some preferences and what kind of thing you're interested in. And so I'd recently completed a maritime navigation course. So I mentioned that and that I was interested in a crew position. So there's it was basically crew and passengers was the distinction. So I said that I was interested in crew because also I enjoy sailing, and because this is an old ish masted sailing vessel, and it was going to be out on the Baltic Sea under sail if the weather was right. I was interested in getting involved with that as well. So my character that I was given was the ship's navigator. So that gave me a chance to wander around with a dividers and a compass and that kind of thing. Pencil.
Put those newly honed skills to the test.
Yeah, it didn't really figure into it because, I suppose there was a bit of stepping out of character there, because to actually look at a chart that represented the area was very clearly not really the Mediterranean in between Transylvania and England. But
imagination will suffice in that respect. A slightly chilly Med if you're on the Baltic.
Yeah, so it was straight after GaelCon, so this was early November. I went straight from GaleCon to Hamburg in Germany, which was the closest airport to where the ship was based from. It's a ship that normally does, training and experience kind of weekends for youths and that sort of stuff.
And how many fellow LARPers were aboard for this event?
I think it was probably about 30 or 40. I think for this, maybe about 10 on the crew and the rest as passengers. Yes, and all the characters were really good, very evocative, and had their own interesting stuff going on and interesting relations with the others. Oh yeah, so sorry, we were just talking about costuming there. That's why I started onto the Navigator thing. Yeah, so for me it was fairly cheap and easy to pick up an old Navy style pea jacket and a sailor's cap, and then I had waterproof over trousers that are modern plastic, but actually could be anything really when to look at them from afar, and a turtleneck jumper. That did the trick. That was fine. And a pipe. That was disgusting. A second-hand pipe from eBay. Ugh.
So there was another one you did after this. Experiment.
That was called Sisyphus. That took place on a more modern boat that I think is owned by the Scout Association and was moored in Canary Wharf in London. This did not go anywhere during the game, and also almost all the action was below decks because they didn't want people running around pretending to be terrified in Canary Wharf because of its history.
It tends not to go over very well.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a bunch of Irish lads over for a bit of a LARP. This was a sci-fi thriller, according to the Facebook post.
That's right.
Very different kind of take.
Yeah. So it was set in the 1980s in a sort of post Falklands War, Cold War setting, and so it was trying to go for that. God, I've forgotten all the films now, but that sort of weird experimental science, trying to develop a super weapon to class the Soviets kind of
experiment
era. Yes.
Yeah. And of course that takes place largely aboard a Navy ship. Was this a military ship?
There was a good variety of different factions on this. So the idea was that it was a military, or it was a civilian group of scientists running an experiment for the military aboard a merchant navy ship that the military had chartered or something along those lines. So you had the civilian group and the merchant navy crew of it, and then there was the military brass and their lackeys. There was press and miscellaneous characters.
Right, all the combustible
the equivalent of
for a good LARP.
Pardon?
All the combustible ingredients for a good LARP.
Yeah, indeed.
It sounds very like Half-Life 2 in some of its elements. As you said, the military experiments and the presumably otherworldly technology.
Oh, okay.
Right, so
I have no idea.
How do nautical LARPs stack up, in your opinion, then? Are they, presumably there's a certain investment required in terms of time, travel, costume, and the event ticket itself. Would you recommend?
Yeah. I mean, okay. So I guess cost is going to be the big one. Now I can't really remember what Sisyphus cost, and of course travel to it is going to be a big deal. Like it's not difficult for me to get to London. It is not easy for me to get from GaleCon to Germany, and the event cost of Demeter was €500. That, of course, includes accommodation and food, which
all on the move.
Sort of cuts down
those are 4 or 5 day events.
I think we're talking about 4 or thereabouts. Sisyphus was 2 nights. It started late on the Friday evening, I think, and then finished on the Sunday. And
in the Sisyphus event, did you get to sleep on board the ship?
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there was
So
designation of
play
cabins.
so events could just go 24 hours during all of this if people were so inclined.
Kind of. They were kind of these two, and I don't know if this is the norm or not, but they were kind of broken into scenes.
Okay.
Particularly the Demeter one, like it was very structured in that regard. We were told beforehand it's going to be laid out like this. At about 2 o'clock in the afternoon there'll be lunch, and then after that there'll be like an hour or so where you can go off and have private conversations. But then at 3 o'clock we want everybody back in the main room because we're going to have an announcement of such and such. It was like that, and there was time allocated to people being able to talk to each other and kind of set up what they would like to do with their characters. Like, I'm kind of interested in this relationship that's coming out between our characters, so I'd like to maybe get a bit aggressive about that. How comfortable are you with
Right.
with physical violence?
So a certain amount of negotiation between the players to then present a scene. That's interesting. And as you say, somewhat different in more of the parlor style of LARPing than say the rubber sword stuff that is so popular in the Ablana crowd here and in the UK. So I love the idea. I've come in course of sort of reading about this. I came across a couple other examples that they've been held on submarines. There was one transatlantic that sort of modelled itself on Battlestar Galactica, and it was set up by a Swedish crowd who then travelled to the States over the course of, I believe it was 3-day period, and they played out a sort of an escape from the Cylon style Battlestar Galactica LARP.
Fantastic!
In a ship,
yeah.
so everyone was kind of battened down, and you're below decks, and if you remember the TV show, it did have that kind of claustrophobic military battleship feel. They just seem
absolutely.
Like wonderful places to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, so actually the crowd that put on the Sisyphus game, they're called Carcosa Dreams, I think, or they've merged with another group. But I'd previously played another one of their games, which was called Tabula Rasa, which was set on a spaceship or space station. I can't remember, or possibly our characters weren't sure. But it physically happened in a kind of airsoft / gaming venue. So there's a lot of like, it was a floor of a building, and there was a lot of plywood walls and stuff like that, breaking into corridors and rooms and that kind of thing. And like, it was good, a good game, and a very functional venue, but it's just not as evocative as being on an actual boat. Like, it really steps the production values up several notches to be on an actual ship if you're pretending to be on a ship.
And I think you and I have probably attended more than a few Irish convention LARPs that are simply one room and a bunch of people, maybe some chairs. So no costumes. The simple fact of having places to wander or congregate or even escape to makes all the difference when it comes to the dynamics of group conversations and individual factions, all of that kind of thing. And ships, of course, being sort of rat runs of corridors and cabins, and staircases.
Yeah. I think by spacing out the play, you need to have a longer time to play it in, because like when everything's close together, you can kind of see who's working with whom, and it'll take longer to figure that out if the play area is larger and more broken up. But of course, a ship is already designed for sleeping in and for cooking in and all of that stuff. So it's a great spot to.
In the case of the Demeter game, was there sort of a support staff attending as well that weren't necessarily involved but kind of catered to guests' needs, as it were?
Yeah, there was probably about half a dozen people who weren't players, or actually maybe about 8. So there was a skipper who was entirely not part of the game. He was just a like a safety.
Stuff.
Yeah, and he had his mate to help with getting the sails up and down and that kind of thing, and then to guide us if we wanted to be doing that stuff in character. There was some people who were just doing NPC stuff. So there's like a small section of the ship that's out of bounds. That's just the makeup room, and it's where the staff are sleeping and that kind of thing. And then there were some people playing kind of GM NPCs, the cook and the captain who ends up tied to the wheel. They're in character, but their actions are going to be guided by the requirements of the game.
Of course, they're I suppose on rails to a certain extent.
Yeah. And they'd all played it several times before, I think, because these games
I should probably have come up with a better nautical metaphor there. So this is a rather chunky bit for my bits box, but a huge amount to chew on here. We may have to revisit the whole subject of location dependent LARPs in a future episode. So maybe you'd like to come back to us for that in the future. But any final thoughts? Anything you want to tell our hopefully rapt in attention audience on nautical LARPs?
Okay, well, I'm pretty glad to have made it through all this without dropping any major spoilers for either of these games. They were both really good, and while it is an investment of time and money and effort, because you do need to buy a costume, although that's pretty cheaply put together from eBay or whatever. Really consider this. There's some extremely high production value LARPing going on. That's fairly accessible if you can get to them and pay to be on board them. And definitely, having come from the Irish gaming scene, the quality of my LARPing didn't embarrass me. Even though on the Demeter one, some of the other players were from Denmark, and their day job is running role playing games for the educational system.
Right.
There's great stuff out there. World. Go find it.
Well, I mean, not to do our own small corner down too much. Think of us as coming from a modern theatre sensibility, stripped down sets and Beckett plays, then moving into the Merchant Ivory production values of these fully fleshed out period LARPs. If Daniel Day-Lewis can do it, I'm sure we can too. So thanks, Evil Robot Shane, for coming on and telling us all about nautical LARPing. It has a lot of different facets. I'm intrigued. I'll probably go and hunt down a few more stories in this one just to whet my appetite as I stare out the window on a year where we haven't really had the chance to move around much. I'll be thinking of voyaging into story, hopefully next year sometime. Okay, well, take care.
Bye-bye.
Well, I hope you liked that. Anyway, the ice is now refreshed, glacier-like, awaiting a suitably nautical victim. Or just future me. And a bilge-like hangover. Okay, let's put our feet on dry land. And move on to, as I said at the top of the show, mechs, walking tanks, all of that jazz. But before we go there, as I said, we're coming into summertime, time of change, renewal, fresh beginnings, new opportunities. One of those new opportunities is for perhaps one of you. The Adventuring Party is always looking for fresh talent, and we just so happen to have an opening. So if you think you've got something to say about the state of gaming, Irish or otherwise, and if you've got a microphone, a moderately beefy computer, and you'd like to join in the party, then we'd be very happy to have you, either as a guest, a subject matter expert, or who knows, if you fit in, if you got the right kind of face for podcasting, as they say, maybe even a host. I mean, you could be hosting Bitsbox sometime soon, as long as you can grapple this microphone and this tumbler from my cold dead hands. Anyway, here's past me, less wise and probably a little sober, past Warlord Scar, still angry, and past Xander, wherever he is now. We wish him well. Rattling on about those tin cans, those rock'em sock'em robots, those Mechwarriors. I hope you enjoy it. And we're back. Now, this time I am joined by two absolute metalheads. Guys who know absolutely everything there is to know about putting all your engineering on two legs and running it around the battlefield. One, long-time co-host, and even longer-time sufferer of my predilections, Scar.
Hello,
and
it's me.
My actual guest, our actual guest, the person who's chosen this topic, is Xander, who amongst other things is working close with the IGA and in the run-up to GaleCon, and after GaleCon, something else. So, what are we talking about, guys?
So, we're going to talk about Rock'em Sock'em 100-ton robot action, but we're actually going to be talking about all the cool stuff that happens around it when we play Game of Thrones in space with giant robots. The Battletech universe and game.
Oh, Mr. Laddie da with 100-ton assault mechs. No one ever congratulates the lovely 75-ton heavies.
Hey, no.
All right, Debbie Downdroid. This is nothing to do with the mechs themselves. Is that what I'm getting from this?
Listen. I have complicated feelings. I'm just going to pop the cork in this rum.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I have spent
corking it.
Possibly close to €100 on Mechwarrior Online. So nice. I have feelings to bring out when it comes to these shenanigans.
Okay, so I'll take two.
I'm going to hide behind you for a minute.
Why?
So, what is it about the stuff around the mechs of Mechwarrior that you find so intriguing?
So, Mechwarrior is like a great game. Battletech's a great game. It scales up and down. You can get regiments. You can go down to individually people fighting. They've got elementals. They've got the RPG. They've got strategic operations, which is over the entire inner sphere. Like, they've got every sort of way you could play the game. But the story around it is absolutely wild. It's political intrigue. It's, medieval political intrigue with giant robots.
Exodus.
You've got the Exodus.
Foundations, second foundations, ideologies clashing, you name it.
It's got everything you want. And then it has, Genghis Khan returning. Sorry, I mean the clans coming. The whole thing is basically if the Roman Empire collapsed and then we had giant mechs. That's very much the same setting at the end in the Battletech setting. They had this great idyllic empire that was built on the back of their complete superiority over everyone else in the giant robot fighting game. And then that all went away because things like that generally do go away. And for the last 200 odd years plus, although at the current time for Battletech, it's about 350. I can't remember exactly when the Secession War started.
There's a lot of timeline stuff. Let's not forget the time when Telecom Aaron emerged from under a mountain and overthrew the Republic.
Yes, it's important that we remember that Space Telecom Aaron are actually surprisingly out of nowhere, like one of the major factions for the game. If you don't pay your phone bill, they will come for you and they will win.
So, I mean, and there's the timeline history of Battletech. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just remember, you reminded me that I've also spent about €100 on, like, Mechwarrior Dark Age collectible miniature packs. We don't
talk about the WizKid time. Oh no.
A lot of good minis.
I tried so hard to make those Agri mechs, those tree chopper mechs. do something. It never worked out.
So
My best unit was a tank.
it's
I feel like a fraud.
I mean,
Wow, this is PTSD from a universe that never happened.
yeah, you go around and you're like, I've got mechs, I'm playing mechs, I'm in a mech game, and then somebody rolls up with a tank that also weighs 100 tons, but because it hasn't spent all of its weight on something like putting legs on it, it's just on wheels. It's got 3 of the largest guns in the game, and it pops out from behind a tree and blows you up, and then blows all your friends up.
Yeah, it's not as cool. So, that's not really valid. It's legs is where it's at. Okay, look,
Yeah.
Xander, inner sphere or clanner? Which are you?
So I would be, I am, very much a good inner spherer. I'm here for the struggle against the genetically modified, tank-bred invaders from beyond.
Those weirdos.
Those weirdos,
Well, just as okay, that's the correct answer, because otherwise I would have made you do the rest of this bit without using contractions.
Yeah, AF. That's a contraction I could use.
Right, and best mech then.
So, in Battletech, I mean, all mechs can be good in certain variants of them, but my favorite mech is a mech that was taken from earlier anime. It's which is a lot of the Battletech designs when it originally came about. They took a lot of designs from anime because they were like, this will help us get some cool traction. So my favorite mech is probably the Rifleman. I like that it's overgunned. It's got very little armor. It has a tendency to explode by itself. But
all you need is gun.
All you need is gun. It's 60 tons.
Scar, best mech?
I feel like I'm cheating, but I've always just sort of liked the Mad Cat as a.
Yeah, that is cheating. That is cheating, you filthy clanner.
I knew you were a clanner. I knew it.
I can't help it. They have the most wonderful toys.
Okay. Look, neither of you said urban mech, so I win.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the people's mech, the urban mech.
The Irby! Get in the bin. I'm already in the bin. And I'm mad as hell about it. I am the bin. All right. Yeah, you're right, Xander. It's a wild, wild ride. If you read the potted history of any of the myriad eras of Mechwarrior or Battletech, like, it's just what is going on. This is just so crazy and so inventive. And always kind of retains that. Yeah, I could see people going that way. I could see people doing that.
Yeah, no one's really stupid in Battletech, which is what I like. Like, things happen, and stupid decisions are made for bureaucratic reasons and stuff. But nobody, like, you don't have to suspend your disbelief about the people interacting with each other most of the time. Which is always, it's grounded. Like, yeah, there are giant robots fighting and battle fleets and all this stuff happening, but the people inside those giant robots are just some horrible people, pretty much universally horrible people, making horrible decisions that only advance their lives, and that's a good setting because everything around it, you can just play the game, but if you get into everything around it, there's so much there, and a lot of it's great, aside from that one book with the bird aliens.
Don't know what you're talking about, mate. Never happened.
Never happened.
Never happened. How about you, Scar? What's I mean, I know you're very much given to Gundam and things like that. But we've gone back and forth on the various mech games. I think it's fair to say though that Mechwarrior Battletech is pretty alright. Yeah,
it's fine. As I said, the thing about Battletech for me is that its strength appears to be the setting. Mechanical design is good, but it's
after Heavy Gear, it's the mech designs I like most and best. Now it covers a broad range.
There are some mechs we won't like. The Ost series of mechs. The egg mechs,
Oh yeah.
They've redesigned them for the new boxes, and they look much cooler. But but there are some mechs that certainly don't need to be talked about for aesthetics.
And I don't know where I am on anything that isn't bipedal. Like the kind of the four-legged mechs and things. Like, that seems like all you need is gun, but that's too many legs. That's like...
I like the three-legged ones. I think those are kind of cool. The super heavies. The four-legged ones, I have some, and they are a bugbear for me because they are twice as difficult to put together because they've got those extra legs that you have to make sure they all balance and stand and stuff.
Right. Well, I guess the only other thing we need to lay our cards on the tables and declare top trump style is best computer game in the Mechwarrior Battletech universe. Let's see. Scar, you go first.
I've only played Mechwarrior Mercenaries 2 on the Nintendo DS and Mechwarrior Online. I just never got around. I'm the kind of guy who's like, I can't play Mechwarrior 4. I haven't played Mechwarrior 1 through 3 yet. Like a moron. Also, the thing is with Mechwarrior gaming is that it's sort of ill-timed for me because its heyday was, the 90s where I was too young to realize that anything except Diablo 2 existed. And then after that, I was straight into the college years where, I was too busy scraping together toast and beans enough to keep my cupboard warm to really enjoy the classics of 90s
Turned
gaming.
into a Charles Dickens novel. Okay.
But I will say, I believe the people who say that Mechwarrior Online is good now. I don't want to go back, but I believe it has content now.
All your shiny upgrades are probably waiting for you there.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and I probably have like 1 million free hours from all types of
there you go.
promotions.
Maybe,
but
save it for a time.
maybe.
I know the correct answer to this is Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries, if for nothing other than the arena announcer's voiceover. But because that kid's got character, and I'm all about character. However, I'm going to say Mech Assault on the Xbox, because to hell with you people. Big shiny ammo crate pickups and playing as an elemental is kind of cool.
It's a Mech Assault.
Xander, we're going to
but I'm going to say
Xander.
Yep.
Last word. Go ahead. Yeah.
So the first game I ever remember playing as a child, like the first war game I played was Battletech. The first PC game was Mechwarrior 2. So that has a special place in my heart. But I got to say, I got hundreds of hours in Mechwarrior Online and Battletech, the computer game Battletech. So I'm going to have to go with Harebrained Schemes Battletech as the best Battletech game. It's got the story, it's got the shooting.
Yeah, I think I bought a copy and haven't got around to it because of Fallout again.
It has that endless commute while you wait for people's limbs to regrow. And when is my mech getting out of the garage? How long does it take to replace all the limbs being blown off?
I mean, surprising amount of time replacing exploded limbs.
A lot of tea drunk, a lot of teeth sucked, not a lot of work getting done down there in the lower bays. Okay, thanks guys for helping me remember just why I like Battletech so much. It's definitely the wild storylines and the improbable mechs. And Space Telecom Aaron ruling the roost for a little while at least. If you have, let's hold on. I think we're just going to cut it there. Xander, thank you very much.
Thank
Scar, thank you very much. And
right.
Let's see what we've got next on the plate. Or this is the end of the episode. I haven't decided which yet. Bye bye. And indeed it was. The end of another Bits box. Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this just about as much as I've enjoyed this fine Irish whiskey. I think it's called Puka, which is some sort of spirit. Yeah, like a Spriggan or a Redcap, something like that. Or maybe it's one of those Goat Boy fellas. I don't know. I'm not much for mythology. I prefer mixology. But yeah, that's been another one. We're heading into summer now. I hope you've got summer games lined up. Some way to while away the balmy evenings. Make sure you get out and smell the fresh air. Feel the wind on your face. Let the rain... What do we do with the rain here in Ireland? I was taking the boy to school today. It rained just a little bit. It's the end of April going into May. And he said to me, "Oh, this terrible weather." I said to him, "Kid, around here this is usually as good as it gets. Count your blessings." And we should. Take a moment to reflect on just how good it really is. It could be a lot worse, you know. This glass could be empty. Okay. That's about enough of that. I'll see you back here next time I decide to rummage around the bits box. And like I said during the last interlude, if you got something to say, you want to go 1-to-1, mano a mano, pull up a bar stool, crack open a keg, get in touch. Until now, I've been SavageMick. This has been Bitsbox number 3. And this party's over. You've been listening to The Adventuring Party. We're a ragtag collective of desperate souls, striving for truth in a world of tabletop gone mad. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter. You can email us at party@theadventuringparty.net. Although, between you and me, best place to track us down is Discord. Check the show notes for a link. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license, which is like free, but with extra steps. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week.